attention. Two things. Somebody said crayon eaters is coming. What? Crayon eaters?
I
That's a
was
new
also
one.
super surprised, like, what?
I hadn't heard that one. Don't repeat it. And the other one that I forgot to mention, but I hear it more and more often, people will say, "Well, my son has high functioning autism." Okay, that's the same difference as mild, moderate, and severe. What does high functioning mean? It means you think they're smarter than most. But your definition of high functioning and mine could be different. My definition of high functioning might be college bound and going to have a full-time job. And your definition of high functioning might be that he reads on a 6th grade level. High functioning doesn't tell you squat. Quit using it, because what you are doing, with the best of intentions, I know, but what you are doing when you say my son has high functioning autism or whatever, you're separating your son as if he's better than other people with autism. Is that really what you want to do? Because somebody else is going to separate your kid as lower than theirs. Think about it. Any comments or questions before I move on?
Laura, I've heard people use the term high functioning and also kind of relate it to, it's like saying, well, he's a functional alcoholic. You know, it's
Yeah.
you're still, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither one is helpful, right? All right, so I'm going to move to my next presentation. Again, that history piece is on the
excuse me.
Making website. Yes.
Should I move the date from the art meeting so we can work on it, or?
That depends on how fast you can work with Leslie. I wouldn't go to an art until you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Because
it's difficult too when we are at home now because of COVID.
I know, but I wouldn't go to art until you're really clear what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me open my other presentation, just a minute. Are you still seeing my screen?
No.
No. Okay, I got to share it again. Now?
Yes, now we're seeing.
Okay, so what I want to do now, and I want to really emphasize a very brief overview, because what I'm teaching you takes days to teach. It's typically a 2 or more day training, and I'm gelling it down to an hour. So I'm giving you the very, very high points and encouraging you to get more training first chance you get. And it's called person-centered thinking, person-centered practices. Let me ask this, how many of you, and Judy, I'll ask you to tell me what you see because I can't see everybody, but how many of you are on a Medicaid waiver currently, or your child is on a Medicaid waiver currently? Just raise your hand. One, I see one. And how many are on, do you see any others, Judy?
I think Judy is not there right now, but
no, I'm here. What was the question?
Okay.
How many
Yes.
are on a Medicaid waiver? How many do you see?
Waiting list, 4 years and 10 more to go.
Okay.
And then 2 participants raised their hand. Trinetta, did you want to unmute yourself, Trinetta? Oh, so she is. And who else raised their hand?
Anybody else on a waiting list?
I am for my son.
Okay. So what I want to say about that is, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, what that has to do
There's
with
several people, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So the purpose here is to show you, or the purpose of the training in person-centered thinking is to show you how to use skills to better support people. And the work that I want to share with you is not my personal brilliance. This comes from a group of people internationally. We call ourselves the Learning Community for Person-Centered Practices. It began in 1989 with 6 people, and now it's an international organization. And some of the slides and work, I couldn't share them with you because they're copyrighted. They're being shared all over the US, as well as in Canada, Great Britain, Australia, Africa, Jerusalem. It's being shared all over the world. And it's about helping people have positive control over their lives. Let me define what I mean by positive control. If you've ever had a child, disability or not, pitch a wall-eyed fit because they weren't getting what they wanted, do you know what that looks like? A temper tantrum? Because they didn't get the toy they wanted, or you didn't buy them that candy bar in the checkout lane. You know what that looks like, right? That's called negative control. They're trying to get what they want by pitching a temper tantrum. People with disabilities often get stuck exhibiting challenging behaviors, we like to call them, because they can't get what they want any other way. And we don't want people to have to rely on negative control for their lives. We want them to have positive control. And in the two-day curriculum that we teach in person-centered thinking covers all of these puzzle pieces. Every one of these puzzle pieces is a tool, and we teach all of those tools and how to use them. Now, if you're on a Medicaid waiver in Texas or on the wait list, every service coordinator in the state of Texas, or if you're using managed care services in Texas, every service coordinator has been required by the state to go through this two-day training. It means they have been introduced to all of those puzzle piece skills. Does that mean that they're brilliant at them and really skilled at them? No, but they have been introduced to them. And the documentation that the state gathers from the managed care organizations or the Medicaid waiver programs are based on some of those puzzle pieces. So that's why I want you to know about it. Person-centered thinking underlies and guides our respectful listening to people, what they want in their lives and how they want it, and it should lead us to respectful action. It supports people to have positive control. We want people to be recognized and valued for what they can contribute, not just in the future, but currently. People contribute by their very being, and we want people to be supported in a web of relationships. It's a set of values-based skills that helps us support people rather than trying to fix them. The skills that we teach work for humans. It's not about disability. We have applied it to disability, and I'm doing that for the purposes of today, but it's about human beings. It applies to every one of us on this call. The work that I teach right here is being used with the homeless population. It is being used in prisons. It's being used with chronically ill or terminally ill people. It's about being human. And what I really want you to know is that it meets requirements, federal requirements that are being rolled out for community-based services. So if you're on a community-based program like the CLASS program, HCS, Texas Home Living, or some managed care organizations programs, several years ago, the Centers for Medicaid Medicare Services came out with a new rule. They call it the Final Settings Rule. I don't have time to teach a lot about it today, but if you Google CMS, Centers for Medicaid Services, CMS Final Settings Rule, you'll find a wealth of information. And it basically says, yes.
I'm so sorry. I thought you were done with that sentence. Trinetta had a question when you're finished. I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
let me finish this point.
My apologies.
Basically, no worries. It basically says that we've got to look at how we're providing community-based services, whether it's a group home or a community-based day habilitation program, or even a sheltered workshop. And it makes some pretty major changes. And what happened was initially they gave the states 4 years to get in compliance, or 5 years to get in compliance. States freaked out. What? We don't know how to do that. They freaked out. And so, I mean, I can tell you Texas in the first 5 years, they submitted 3 plans that were rejected by the federal government. So then the federal government said, okay, we'll give you a 2-year extension, 2 more years to get in compliance. Well, so that was going to happen in 2020, 14. Well, now COVID has happened. And so now they've given it another 2-year extension. And I don't know what it means, but I think it will change some systems pretty dramatically when it finally gets in place. And know that one of the things the final settings rule requires is person-centered practices, person-centered planning. So what can I answer the question for now? There was a question.
Yes, Trinetta, your hand is raised?
Oh, no, that was earlier about
Oh,
who's
I'm so
waiting on
sorry. I
services.
thought that was new.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
For
Okay,
Medicaid,
thank
you're
you.
on a waiver or on a wait list. So just know that the final settings rule is coming. It's going to change some things. I think one of the biggest things it's going to change are sheltered workshops and rehabilitation programs. But what that's going to look like, I can't answer. And if I use terminology you don't know what I'm talking about, ask me. And person-centered thinking is basically about people getting better lives, not just better paper. Because if you think about the amount of paper that's been generated about you around your kid, around yourself, it's piles, isn't it? But how much of that paper actually changes your life, makes it better, gets you what you need? Not a lot. The other tool that I want to share with you is also not my personal brilliance. It comes from the University Center of Excellence in Missouri, and it's called Charting the Life Course. Some states have adopted this as a state practice. Texas is not one of those. But I am a life course ambassador, so I can show it to you and I can direct you to their website for more information. And the beauty of their stuff is that right now, none of their tools are copyrighted. They're available for free download. So I'll show you some of those. So person-centered supports within the context of the family and the community is what we're looking for. Because historically, like we talked about before the break, supports were in the context of an institutional setting, right? So they use a tool called the trajectory. I love this tool. How many of you have been told as family members, you've got to have a vision for your kid? What's your kid's life going to look like when he's an adult? And I was asked that when my son was young, and it totally freaked me out because the future scared me quite seriously. I was scared of the future, and maybe you are too. And I didn't know what his future might look like because I didn't know what he might be able to do or not do. I didn't know what services he might or might not have. The trajectory is a simpler way to look at the future and allow you to take small steps in that direction. And so you see the bold black line that says trajectory toward life outcomes. And in the blue cloud, you write all the things that you want for yourself or for your son or for your daughter. Typically, we want them to have these things. We want them to have their friends, their family. We want them to have money, a job they find meaningful. We want them to be able to take a vacation, have good health, have choice and freedom, right? But sometimes families or even self-advocates are so stuck that they can't think about what it is that they envision or want for their future because it's overwhelming. If you can't answer the question what you want for your own future or your son or daughters, start with that green cloud on the bottom. What do you don't want? What are you afraid of? Excuse me, I can feel a sneeze coming. What are you afraid of? What do you want to avoid? Because if you can answer the question, what do I don't want in the green cloud, it'll help drive your direction toward what is it that I do want. Okay? So, and then you do that with the person. With, if you have a junior high student, I'd do this with your son or daughter. What do they envision? What do they want in junior high? Maybe they want a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Maybe they want to be able to go to lunch with everybody else. They want to play on the football team or whatever, the drill team. You write that in the things that they want, and you ask them, what do they want to avoid? And you can see in these clouds, these are the things we typically hear for people with disabilities. Okay. And then I ask the family, what is it you want as a family? What do you want for your loved one? And these are the things we typically see. Does that make sense? The other tool that they have on the Charting the Life course is called the Integrated Support Star. Now, both of these, the trajectory and the Integrated Support Star, are both available blank as a free download for Charting the Life course. And I'll send you to that at the end of the presentation. But this is what it looks like. You know, on the left side, you see that circle. There's the person is in the blue circle. Their family is all around them, and the community is all around the family and the person. Those stars represent supports. Because what we did in the past, we used to have a circle between the person and the family that we called supports. And that would be like special ed services, waiver services, therapy services, tutoring services. We used to call them wraparound services, and we thought it was a brilliant thing. But what we found was that it separated the person from their loved ones, their family, their community. Instead, we want to put supports when and where they are needed. You know, a lot of times you get special ed services and you get them just because they wrote them in and everybody has them, but you don't need them. You only want what you need. Don't ask for what you don't need. None of us want everything. We just want what we need. And then on the right side, you see the star broken into colors. So we look at what are these person's supports in terms of relationships? Who's in their life? Who's available as a support? Are there church members? Are there friends in the community? Does he have colleagues at work? Our neighbor? What kind of relationships can be a support? Above that, the light blue are what is this person's personal skills and assets? What are they good at? What do they like to do? What resources do they have available to them? What skills? In the pink over on the far left, what technology resources do they have? You know, I can remember going to my son's IEP meeting when he was in the 2nd grade. I knew math was just not going to work for him. I could see it. And there was a moment in time, some of you older folks like me might remember it, but there was a brief moment in time when Walmart had computers or calculators built into the handlebars of their push cart grocery shopping carts. Do you remember that? They had little calculators. It didn't last long because I figured they left them out in the rain and they got wet. But I was walking through the Walmart one day with one of those carts, and I had this moment because I was always asking, how can my son shop for his groceries as an adult when he doesn't understand money? Maybe we could teach him a calculator. So I went to the IEP meeting and I said, you know, I think we could teach David how to use a calculator. And then when he put something in the grocery cart, he could type the price into the, and they all looked at me like I had grown a second head. It was a long pause before anybody said anything. And then they said, well, Laura, we're just concerned he'll be dependent on a calculator. Okay, well, how many have a calculator on their cell phone? You know, I do, don't you? Does your cashier know how to count change? No, they don't, because they have a calculator on the cash register. So technology, my son uses an iPhone, he uses a computer, we use remote monitoring to know where he is when he's driving by himself. He has a lot of technology resources. Those are supports to him. What community-based, down on the bottom left, community-based supports, you know, maybe he uses public transportation, or maybe there's a faith-based organization he's a part of. The bottom right, the light green, should be the very last thing you look at when you're thinking about what supports would my son or daughter or me need. And those are eligibility specific. But here's the thing. When you're talking to providers, whether it's managed care, whether it's special education, whatever the service is, they tend to move strictly to eligibility specific. And families, we do that too. Well, he doesn't qualify. Okay, eligibility specific should be the last support you look at, not the first, especially those of you that are on waiting lists. The wait list in Texas is 12 to 15 years long, and you know that. So for some of you, those eligibility specific supports, whether it's Social Security or Medicaid waiver or food stamps or Section 8 housing, you know, right now, the only eligibility specific supports you may qualify for are special ed services. And if that's the only support they're getting in school, you're missing the boat. Look at all these other pieces of the star, okay? When you only focus on eligibility specific supports, what we see is people, it drives people, I'm looking at the chart on the bottom left, it drives people toward that green cloud. Eligibility specific supports drive people to the green cloud, the things you don't want, the places you don't want, like poverty, loneliness, segregation, restrictions. Because eligibility specific supports, you know, if you're qualified for Social Security, SSI, you're limited to $2,000. If you qualify for a Medicaid waiver, you can never have more than $2,000. It limits how much money you can have. It limits what you can do and where you can do it. On the top right, if you're relying only on family and friends, relationships, again, it can drive you to places you didn't intend to go. Because if the only people in your loved one's life are family and close friends, they get lonely. COVID has certainly exacerbated this, hasn't it? You know, my son is lonely as all get out because thank God he has work 3 days a week and friendships and relationships and work. We took a risk by letting him go to work because he's immunocompromised, but we knew not working was going to drive him to that green cloud that we don't want. Is this making sense to you? Are there questions so far? And here's where you find this information. Now, the Charting a Life course, I've just shown you 2 of their tools. They have a whole slew of them. And they're all available for free download. And they have some really good videotapes that you can watch that show people using the tool or how they use the tool, how they found the tool useful. So the Charting the Life course website is just a wealth of information and free download stuff. I think you have to register to free download, but that's all they just want to know who you are so they can report their numbers.
Laura,
Any questions about Charting the Life course? Yes.
if I could just interrupt for just a second.
Please
So
do.
everyone, if you don't know her already, she is definitely someone to know. Our
Go
executive
ahead.
director, Mary Jane Williams, has joined us. And I just wanted to welcome her and just to introduce everyone to her. She is the reason that I am the person I am today and what I have become today. I could not have done this job or progressed the last 5 years. It all began with her. So Mary Jane, if you just want to welcome everyone, we have a great class today.
Hi, Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, I know you're on.
Hi, sorry.
There you are.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I just welcomed you and sang your praises.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And welcome everybody that's joined us today. I just wanted to get on and, oh, look, she's got the Charting the Life course framework up there.
Yeah.
Great tools.
It's a great set of tools. Yeah. Texas hasn't embraced it as a state yet, but it doesn't mean you can't start using it. I already have been. It's powerful stuff, really user friendly, and the videos that are on the website are helpful for figuring out how might I use this in my life or my son's life or my daughter, whatever. Really helpful. And Mary Jane is the reason for what Family to Family is today. So yay, Mary Jane.
Yes, yay, Mary Jane.
Okay, so any questions or comments about the Charting Life course before I move on? I just showed you 2 tools, but they're only 2 of a wealth of stuff, and they're available for free download. Go get them. Questions? Okay. So what I want to do is break you into breakout rooms. I got to figure out how to get up there. Hold on. I'm going to send you to breakout rooms, and I want you all to talk amongst yourselves for a minute about what you think you would put in that vision for a good life for yourself or your child. Or what is it that you worry about, what you fear that would help you drive to a better vision for your loved one. I'm looking for breakout rooms. Now I can't find it for nothing. Wait.
It should be
Oh, here it is.
under.
I found it. I
Oh,
found it.
okay.
Okay, so you're going to be sent automatically to a breakout room. I'm only going to give you a few minutes because I got a lot more to cover. But I want you to talk amongst yourselves about, and I don't know that this chart will show up in your breakout room, so just ask yourself, what's my vision and what do I fear? What do I want to write for my vision or my child's vision? And what is it I want to avoid? Share that with your group, and then I'll bring you back in just a few minutes.
Hello.
So Laura, are you doing it yet?
Some people went, but
Yeah.
you know what? Some people have come in and they're not assigned. So let me just assign people really quick. I see what it is. Because
Okay.
I set this up when Kathy was talking.
Oh, yeah, we've had new people join us.
Yeah, that's the problem. All right, I'm assigning as we speak. And people are moving.
Perfect.
I'm still here.
Wonderful.
Oh, you sent me to a breakout room.
Oh, well, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I wasn't looking at names. I was just assigning. I usually slip in and out of the breakout rooms and kind of see what's going on.
Okay.
So I'll do that real quick.
Yeah, Shay needs to be put into one. Okay, so I think I was put into a breakout room. So hello, Shay, Raina, Jennifer, Ms. Cunningham, Courtney, and Tamar. Why don't you all unmute yourselves? And, or I can do that for you. So would someone like to go first? About the vision that you see? Courtney? This is not working too well. It's not letting me there. Courtney, it's not letting me unmute you for some reason. I don't know why, Laura.
They should be able to unmute themselves.
Yeah, if everyone could unmute themselves.
If you click on your screen where you are, you'll see a little blue box in the top right corner that says mute or unmute. Click
Yeah,
that.
and you can just do that. Or you can go in the lower left-hand corner of your screen where the microphone is and unmute that way as well. Tamara, Jennifer, can you unmute? Well, I don't think that worked too well. Can anyone hear me? Hello? I'm so sorry. I don't think this is working very well. I apologize.
I closed the breakout room so they have like a minute warning and then they're coming back. It sounded like people were struggling, but
Yeah,
they,
mine didn't work, so I don't know what happened.
and that's normal for people to
Yeah.
struggle. They haven't practiced this before, so that was good.
Yeah, my breakout room didn't seem to work at all. I couldn't get people to, so no worries.
Okay. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen
Okay,
and people will start filtering back in here.
perfect. And that's what we want. We want people to start thinking.
Yeah, that's all I'm trying to do.
We want the wheels to start turning.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. Excuse me. Leave me back out the way.
Yes.
God, we're out the way.
I think we're all back, Judy?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
So I zipped in and out of the breakout rooms and I could see you guys were struggling. Some were and some weren't. I expect you to struggle because this is new thinking. What I want you to think about in terms of your vision is be very specific, not just, I want him to grow up and have a healthy, good life. That's very broad and general. I want you to get really specific. I want him to be employed, or I want him to be employed in a certain field, or I want his kidney issue to be addressed by the medical professionals well. You know, get really, really specific about what it is that you want for them, and also get really specific about what you don't want. I don't have time to put my sons up here today. I should have, but if I run out of time, if I get done early, I'll pull it up real quick. But, you know, my son's on what he doesn't want is kidney disease. He has said that because he has kidney disease. He doesn't want it to be, he doesn't want it to be where it impairs his way of life. So he wrote that down in very specific terms, and we address it that way. It's easier to get him to manage his kidney disease because he's been really clear about what he doesn't want around that. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for thinking about specifics. What do you want for your child? What do you fear? What do you want to avoid for your son or your daughter or yourself? And then the other thing that I want to share with you goes back to that learning community that I talked about earlier. Again, not my personal brilliance. And this is a 2-day training. I'm giving you a snippet, but the most important piece that I want you to walk away with today is right here. And we call it the core concept. It's the difference between what's important to you and what's important for you or your child, and the balance between them. Okay? They sound like the same thing, important to and important for. They're very different. So let me explain it. Important to includes anything that helps you or your child feel satisfied, content, comforted, fulfilled, or happy. And it includes all of these things on this list. So it's about the people that you have in your life and the type relationship you share with them. You're closer to some than others. There's something about that that's important to you. It's about your culture and your identity, how you see yourself, how you identify, or how your child does. It's about having purpose and meaning. You remember I talked about David, me telling the employer that we need 7 Habitat for Humanity Restore shirts, please. Actually, we probably need 10, because David wears a Habitat for Humanity Restore shirt every single day. He wears it to work. He wears it to eat at a restaurant pre-COVID. He wears it to church. He wears it wherever he goes. And that's about purpose and meaning. He feels important. It says Habitat for Humanity staff. He feels important. He feels like he's got a meaning in this life and he has a purpose at his job. It's about having status and control in your life. None of us think of ourselves as control freaks, but we all are. Think about if you've ever lost control. I'll ask whoever has their mic on to mute it. It's about having control in your life and how you have control in your life, how you exercise control, what makes you feel like you're important. Status is nothing more than feeling like you matter for some reason. So your kid wants status also, you know? How do you help them get that? It's about having things to do and places to go. COVID has dramatically impacted all of us in terms of what's important to us around what we get to do and where we go to do it. Aren't we missing all the places we love to go and things we love to do? All of us are missing it. We have had an impact on what's important to us. It's about our rituals and routines. Our routines are different. You know, I used to travel for work. I would travel 3 weeks out of the month. My work routine is completely different because I'm doing this all online.
Yes, ma'am.
Your routines have changed as well as your kids have for school. Your rhythm or pace of life, how you like to move through your days, how you like to move through your weeks. All of those things are what we call important too, that help us feel satisfied, content, fulfilled, happy, comforted. And important too also depends on how you define quality of life. Now, let me ask you, have you ever had somebody tell you something that was important to them, but their behavior says something very different? I've seen that, haven't you? Yes, we all have seen that. You know, I can sit here and say, I need to lose 20 pounds. But if I go and eat ice cream tonight, which I might, how important is that 20 pounds to me really? Probably not as important as I like to think it is or like to say it is. So sometimes when words and behavior are in conflict, I need you to ask yourself why. Because sometimes people with disabilities will tell us something is important to them, but their behavior will sound something very different. We've done a really good job of teaching people with disabilities how to tell us what they think we want to hear. You know, my son's service coordinator will be here next week. Well, they won't be here because it'll be telemed. But when they normally would come and sit, because it's time for his annual meeting, they'd sit at our kitchen table. I would even get up and leave the table so that David felt like he could really talk honestly. Of course, I want to hear what's being said. But I can hear my son answer the service coordinator's question, and I can feel him turn and look to me to see if I'm going to approve. And I've done a really good job of teaching him how to speak for himself, but he still will often tell people what he thinks they want to hear. And that's true of a lot of people with disabilities. So pay attention to words and behavior. When they're in conflict, you've got an issue. We often miss what's important to our loved one because we are laser focused, and I mean laser focused, on important for health and safety. We want our loved ones to be safe. We want them to be healthy. We don't want their medical conditions to get worse or not be treated. We don't want them to be overweight or not be physically fit, and we worry about them being bullied or being taken advantage of, which is why we often put them in very self-contained, safe environments, right? We are laser focused on important four. I can tell you I've worked with an awful lot of providers in the state who will say, my job is to keep them healthy and safe. Yeah, but your job is more important, is bigger than that. There are more important things than just health and safety. Important too. So then we get to what we call balance. Well, let me talk about this. I forgot about this piece. There's a little piece of important four that we often miss, and I don't want you to. It's what you or friends or educators or therapists, other people in your child's life or your life see as necessary to help the person we love be seen as a valued contributing member of his or her community. I always tell the story about Starbucks. My son loves to go to Starbucks, did before COVID anyway. And he and my husband would go 2 or 3 nights a week to Starbucks. And my husband said one night they went, this is all pre-COVID, but they went, it was very crowded when they got inside. And my son does not pick up on subtle social cues like people are standing in a line. So guess what he did? He cut the line. He went right to the cash register in front of all those people. He didn't see the subtle social cue that people were standing in line. I know, I live in a kind part of the community in the state. I know people would have forgiven him. They might have whispered to themselves, but they would have recognized a developmental disability and they would have let it happen. Already he's less valued in the community. But what happens if he comes in there 3 nights a week and cuts the line every time? He's not going to be welcomed either. So my husband pulled him back to the end of the line. When they got in the truck, he told him what had happened. Ron said he tried teaching David. He finally said, he just doesn't see it, Laura. So we taught David, when you go in a place where it looks like people might be in line, they might, and you're not sure, make eye contact with somebody and say, excuse me, is there a line? Are you in line? Where's the end of the line? Because people will always tell you where the end of the line is. It's foolproof method. Teaching David that skill is important for him. Do you understand that? And they're connected. Important 2 and important 4, they influence each other.
Laura, we lost you again. Laura, are you there?
Oh, she's frozen, right?
Yeah. Laura, let us know if you're there.
I guess she realizes that when she gets frozen, right?
I'm not sure she's realizing it. And I know she's not monitoring the chat box.
Oh.
Now she realizes it. She'll probably come back on.
Mhm.
Yeah. To the group, we're having some technical difficulties. Laura will be back with us momentarily.
Well, we can remind them to fill out the survey. I don't know if you already did.
Yes.
Before they leave today.
Yes, please do that. Christina has posted it in the chat box, but please complete the survey. That's how we continue to receive grant funding.
Am I back?
Yes, you are. I was like, oops, we lost that.
Zoom kicked me out.
How dare they?
I know.
Shame on them.
So can I pick back up where I was?
Yes, please do.
Okay,
Because
great.
I was starting to say, Laura, we lost you.
I know, it kicked me out. All right, so important 2 and important 4 influence each other. I was telling you, I used to be a distance cyclist. I used to ride my bike 50 miles in a weekend. And then 2 years ago, I got hit by a truck on my bike. Yes, did not see me or the 2 people I was riding with. I was hospitalized for a month, total shoulder replacement, total hip replacement, concussion. So all of a sudden, what was important to me, my bike, and what's important for me my physical health and the risk of another concussion and screwing up my shoulder, they influence each other, right? I've had to make some changes. I haven't been back on my bike, I'm sad to say. So we involve trade-offs all the time. That's true of our kids as well. So what I want to do real quickly is, and I'm just going to do it via unmuting yourself and using the mic. So I have two dogs at home, Coda and Willow. Coda is the border collie on the left. Willow is the golden retriever on the right. Both dogs have to have a heartworm pill once a month. So I'm going to do an important 2-4 sort with you, okay? So heartworm pill, is that important 2 or important 4? Unmute yourself and tell me, or put it in the chat. Important 2 or important 4, heartworm?
People are writing
Important for.
Yes, thank you. It's important for health and safety. They got to have it or they'll get a heartworm and it'll kill them, right? Well, it says on the box that heartworm pills are flavored like a treat. But Willow buys it. Willow is all about the treat. Doesn't care what it tastes like. She wolfs it down. But Coda, look at his eyes. He knows it's not a treat and he will have no part of it. So let's do another important 2-4 sort. Peanut butter, important 2 or important 4?
So far we have important 2.
You're right. It's important 2. Now, how's it going to work? If I say, Coda, you got to have this heartworm pill. You can have this peanut butter, important 2, after you eat this heartworm pill, important 4. How's that going to work for him? It is not going to work. I can tell you, I tried it. He'll put it under the couch or somewhere. I have to take the heartworm pill and wrap it up in a ball of peanut butter. Does that make sense to you? We have to do that for each other and our kids. We do it in our own lives all the time. You know, pre-COVID, you used to get in your car and drive places. You remember that? And it's not safe to drive a car. You guys know that, especially in Houston. How did you address your important 4, health and safety, in the context of driving your own car?
Seatbelt.
You fastened your seatbelt. You drove defensively. You obeyed the speed limit laws, etc. But you got in your car and drove where you wanted. That was what was important to you, right? And you wrapped your health and safety up in that context. So I want you to think about it that way, because here's what we do at school and with kids with disabilities, adults and children both. We do the opposite. We'll say, you can have this when you do that. Like I told Coda, you can have peanut butter after you eat the heartworm pill. We do that to kids all the time and we wonder why it doesn't work. We have to address the important 4, health and safety, in the context of important 2, peanut butter. They'll do it every time. People with disabilities often have the weight on important 4 and they're miserable. This is a parent's worst nightmare. I don't want this for my child, do you? Where they get everything they want, when they want, how they want. We can't do that either. That has consequences. I think of Justin Bieber. This is what we're looking for, balance. I've got something in my eye. And so going back to the Charting the Life course tools and the person-centered thinking tools, no plan is ever complete. You start with where you are. If this is overwhelming to you, don't feel like you have to finish it. Just start with one thing. What is it that I want for my son or my daughter or myself? Start with your purpose. What is it that I want? Introduce them in a way that other people see what they're capable of instead of by the deficits. Remember Taylor and Lee that I introduced you to? Reflect what's important to them and tell me how to best support. Instead of telling the employer, my son doesn't tell time, I said to the employer, When you tell David how long he gets for a break for lunch, show him what time to be back on the clock, because he won't understand 15 minutes. Then I'm telling him how to support, because when we say he doesn't count money, he doesn't tell time, he doesn't tie his shoes, whatever we're telling, that just tells the deficit. It doesn't tell people how to support. Okay? And what's important to the person changes over time. You can get hit by a truck, and what's important to might change. We add depth as we learn more information. And the next steps. And this is where I want to turn it back to you all and to Judy for comments, questions. What are your highs? What are your lows? What are your fears?
Thank you so much, Laura. Laura really covered on some really important points. And one of the
In a hurry.
What's that?
In a hurry, yeah.
Yes, in a big hurry, because I know that normally this class goes until 2:30 when we're meeting in person. But I know that these are very challenging times and we all have to adjust and adapt. So we have condensed it greatly, which has caused Laura to have to really rush through it. But it is really important to understand these concepts. And so if there's something that you are struggling with, Laura has put her email there and put in the subject line, participated in Family to Family Network Leadership and Advocacy, because then she'll
Please
know,
do, 'cause
oh,
I'll
yes,
know, yeah.
I know what I talked about with you, because,
Yeah.
you know, like so many of us, her schedule is, you know, full. So, or, you know, reach out to me, reach out to Mary Jane, Christina. We are here to support you. I really loved the comments, the thoughts, the suggestions that you all put in the chat box. Really important. It got you thinking, you shared your opinions, and more importantly, everyone was so respectful. And I think that's really important. Questions, comments, thoughts? Oh, Courtney, I'm so happy you enjoyed this. And a couple of people had to leave, and they private messaged me that this was just perfect. Wendy, thank you so much. So happy you enjoyed it. And Laura, like Kathy, she trains people around the country. Really important. Ling, I'm so happy that you joined us. We have a number of self-advocates who spoke up beautifully, and that talks great, sings great praises to you all, because you're advocating for yourself and you're speaking up for yourself. And I think that's just really important. Everyone deserves to lead a meaningful life. Everyone. Christina put in there the survey link. So please make sure that you do that. Josefina, we're so happy you could join us. Wendy, you had a question? I think that's a new hand.
Yes. I always like to ask this question. Laura, what are some of your biggest, what are your top 3 books that you recommend, or literature that you love to recommend out?
Well,
Or websites.
I have to think about that, but I would certainly recommend Kathy's Disability is Natural, and it's on .com, but she's also got books. No Pity is one that Mary Jane and I had to read back when our kids were 5 and we started Partners in Policy Making. It's really helpful to see the bigger picture. I'm drawing a blank on the third one. I'd have to think about that.
Thank you. Or movie or anything, just,
You know,
what's your...
if there's a new one that came out on Netflix called Crip Camp, and it really, it goes back to the history of the disability movement in the 70s and some of the leaders that are still leaders in the disability field today. the independent living movement, Crip Camp it's called.
Mhm. Very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very well done.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
So I want to again be respectful of everyone's time. It's 12:25. I can't thank you enough for all of you attending today, especially on a Saturday and during these difficult times. Mary Jane, Kathy, Laura, they have truly shaped my world in ways that are life-changing and allow me to help others and to serve others. We all believe in paying it forward, and that's what we're doing today. I do it every day in the families I speak with and talk to and email with, and it's really, really important. Really important. And supporting each other is important. So if there aren't any other questions, thank you again for your positive feedback. We really appreciate it. And Laura, again, just thank you so much. Oh, Barbie wrote some information, Wendy, about the IEP checklist. Oh, Pete, right, yes.
Well, and I would recommend that the website that Family to Family runs for the TEA called Texas Project First.
Yes.
Invaluable parent-friendly information
Mhm.
about the special ed system, birth to graduation.
Thank you.
Walks you through step by step on how to do some of this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's Texas specific and it's approved by the Texas Education Agency. So it's information you could take to your school and know that it's legitimate.
I should have thought of that. I had a Saturday moment, a senior moment. And absolutely. And it's also in both English and Spanish, and it was written by parents for parents. Really great website.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Christina. Please, please make sure that you complete the survey. And that helps us get additional funding in the future. So many thanks to Laura. And
Thanks
I
for
wish
sharing your
everyone
Saturday with me, you guys.
our
And
pleasure,
email
Laura.
me if there's something that I missed and you want to know more about. Just tell me where I met you because I won't remember.
And we look forward to seeing everyone February 20th. We're going to be having another excellent presenter talking about different topics that we know will be relevant to your journey. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll stay on for a minute, Judy.
Okay.